Simca Aronde 1951–1964. The Simca Aronde is an automobile which was manufactured by the French automaker Simca from 1951 to 1963. It was Simca's first original design. Earlier models were all to a greater or lesser extent based on Fiat's, as well as the company's first unibody car. Hirondelle means swallow in Old French, and it was chosen as the name for the model because Simca's logo at that time was a stylized swallow. There were 3 generations of the model: the 9 Aronde, made from 1951 to 1955, the 98 Aronde, made from 1955 to 1958, and the Aronde P60, which debuted in 1958 and continued until the model was dropped in 1964. Some 1.4 million Arondes were made in total, and this model alone is largely responsible for Simca becoming the second biggest French automaker at the end of the 1950s. The first Aronde debuted in the spring of 1951, but initially only a few hundred pre-production cars were distributed to carefully selected guinea pig buyers, and the full production version was finalized only in time for the Paris Motor Show, becoming available for sale in October 1951. The full production version incorporated various detail changes when compared to the pre-volume production cars, including a changed material for the seat covers and a molded plastic dashboard, which at the time appeared very modern when compared to the metal dashboard on the Aronde's most obvious competitor, the Peugeot 203. A few months later, at the start of 1952, space was found to position the battery under the bonnet/hood. In the earliest cars, the battery was stowed under the front seat. The Aronde was fitted with a front-mounted 1221cc 44.5 bhp, 33.2 kilowatts, engine from the previous Simca model, the Simca 8, fuel feed being provided by a Solex 32 carburetor. Power was delivered to the rear wheels via a traditional 4-speed manual gearbox incorporating synchromesh on the top 3 ratios. The car had independent suspension at the front using coil springs, with a live axle at the rear, suspended using semi-elliptic leaf springs. Hydraulically operated 9.85N, 250mm, drum brakes were used all round. The only body style offered at the October 1951 launch was a 4-door saloon/sedan/berline, but other configurations very soon became available, such as the 3-door Estate, branded initially as the Aronde Commerciale and later as the Toulon, with a horizontally split tailgate. There was also a van, called the Messager, and a Commerciale semi-vitter, part Banal van and part Estate, became available in 1953. Of more interest to collectors is the 2-door Coup coach built by Facel. The Facel-built Coup was replaced for 1953 by a Coup based on the saloon Aronde body, called Grand Large, featuring a large 3-piece wraparound rear window and a pillar-less side window effect when both side windows were wound down. A 2-door cabriolet conversion, prepared by the coach builder Figoni, was presented to the public for the 1953 model year in a display involving ballerinas, but it proved impossible to confer sufficient structural rigidity on this car without unacceptable cost and weight penalties, and Figoni's Aronde cabriolet was never produced for sale. The 1952 Motor Show saw several manufacturers attempting to broaden the appeal of mainstream ranges with stripped-down versions offered at a reduced price. The trend seems to have been started by Renault with their 4CV service, and they were quickly followed by other automakers including Rosengart and Simca. Simca's Aronde Quotidien was offered from January 1953 with an advertised price of 630,000 francs. Which was a saving of 45,000 against the previous base model, confusingly branded, even then, as the Aronde Berline looks. The interior of the Quotidien was simplified and the heater disappeared, as did most of the exterior trim. Nevertheless, chrome headlight surrounds remained in place. Importantly, too, buyers of the Aronde Quotidien could still choose from the full range of body colors offered on the Aronde Berline looks. The company was keen to stress that the stripped-down Aronde was not as fully stripped down as the Renault Frigate affairs, available only in black, the Renault 4CV Service or the Rosengart Artisan, these last two being offered only in grey. The 9 Aronde was well received, especially in France. It took only until March 17, 1953 before total production of this model at the Nanterre plant passed 100,000. The company's flamboyant boss, Henri Pigotti, was keenly aware of the publicity that could be generated from the craze for record-breaking runs. In May 1952, an Aronde broke 5 international records by covering a distance of 50,000 kilometers, 31,000 miles, at an average speed of 117 kilometers per hour, 73 miles per hour, and in August 1953 another Aronde, selected at random from the production line, returned to the Montlhéry circuit for a new record attempt whereby during the course of 40 days and 40 nights the car covered 39,242 laps, which represented 100,000 kilometers, 62,000 miles, at an average speed of more than 104 kilometers per hour, 65 miles per hour. This achievement, which involved breaking more than 30 international records, was undertaken under the supervision of the ACF. A car tested in France by the British Motor Magazine in 1951 had a top speed of 73.9 miles per hour, 118.9 kilometers per hour, and could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour, 97 kilometers per hour, in 30.2 seconds. A fuel consumption of 34.1 miles per imperial gallon, 8.3 liters/100 kilometers, 28.4 miles per gallon US, was recorded. The test car was reported to cost 970 francs on the French market. It was not at the time available in the UK, but the price was converted to £657.